And Chairman Schiff, it seems tonight that historians now have the proof that Donald Trump committed those high crimes because he knew that he could not beat Joe Biden in a fair election.
Lawrence, I think you're right. The president has been vindicated in one thing, and that was the realization early on that Joe Biden could beat him, that Joe Biden was a threat to his reelection. And indeed, Joe Biden proved that he could beat Donald Trump. And you know, I think the president has shown also in how he's handling this transition something that's been abundantly clear now for years, and that is he will never act in the nation's interest if it conflicts with his own personal interest. And right now, he cares nothing about nothing in terms of what's good for the country. It's only about saving what's left of his pride and his ego and lashing out till the very end.
I want to get your reaction to the way the president fired the defense secretary today. Secretary Esper fired him via tweet. And how many more of those do we expect in the 72 days?
You know, I have to think that we could see a lot of bloodletting in the next couple months. The defense secretary is gone. Many of us could see that coming. Tonight, we just got word that the top climate scientist has been removed from his post. You have a resignation, high-profile resignation at the Justice Department of someone who refused to do Bill Barr's new bidding. You have a new lawyer, a general counsel at the National Security Agency, the NSA, who is really not just unqualified for the job, but antithetical to the requirements of the general counsel of that intelligence agency, that they be utterly apolitical. This is someone who was a former Nunes staffer and engaged in, had a role in the Midnight Run episode. So we're going to see a lot of this out with anyone the president doesn't like for one reason or another, rewarding some political cronies in these last hours and days.
We have the memo that Richard Pilger filed tonight with his resignation. He is the director of the Election Crimes Branch Public Integrity Section of the Justice Department, and he's also the winner of an Integrity Award in the Justice Department. And he cites that in saying why he's resigning. He said, having familiarized myself with new policy and its ramifications and in accord with the best tradition of the John C. Keeney Award for Exceptional Integrity and Professionalism, my most cherished departmental recognition, I must regretfully resign from my role as director of the Election Crimes Branch. And this is simply after William Barr issued a memo to federal prosecutors saying you can investigate possible election crimes here. But he also included other limitations, like it has to be a case that will change the outcome in a state, which we know is not out there. That case isn't going to be found. And so this is the classic resignation on principle by someone who didn't want his integrity compromised by that Barr memo.
You know, Lawrence, I can only think how history might have been different if there were more people like Mr. Pilger who recognized that their greater good would come in resigning their position rather than carry out things that were inimical to the national interest. So, you know, hats off to this person of integrity. Bill Barr has decided that from his first day in the Attorney General's office to his last, he will be Donald Trump's personal lawyer. He will do what Donald Trump wants him to do. He will not be the Attorney General of the United States. He will not do what's in the best interests of the people of the United States. He will do what he believes he can get away with that's in the president's personal interest. And right now, though there's no evidence of systemic fraud in the election, he is authorizing prosecutors to ignore previous Justice Department policy and engage in investigations that will only seek to undermine the credibility of the election, only seek to undermine the election of Joe Biden without changing the result, but nonetheless doing this last bit of personal dirty work for the president.